The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network. There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to a very special episode of Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And I, Brian, say a very hearty in-person Excelsior! True believers.
Boy, I got chills watching you do that in person. That's right. For we've been on the air, 4 years? 3 years?
I don't know.
Something like that.
Like almost 80 episodes,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever sat down and done one in person.
It is.
Not over Skype.
It is.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm a little thrown off my game here. I don't know what to click and what to look at. But yeah, we're continuing our deep dive into Marvel's Godzilla. Today we're starting with issue 6.
What happened to you?
I don't know. It's being in your presence. it's seeing you in that awesome Marvel Monster of Frankenstein
That's right.
T-shirt.
Monster. I'll post a picture
Did
this
you
after.
notice what I'm representing today? Bloom County.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
So yeah.
Oh, and it's also a quiet homage to our friend Jack Ketchum,
Exactly.
aka Dallas Mayer.
Yep.
There you go.
So there we go.
Will this, Brian, become the day of the giant killers? That's the text on the cover of Godzilla King of the Monsters number 6. Once again by Doug Mensch, however you pronounce it, with artist and inker Herb Trimpe back on the book.
Really? It says the day of the giant killers on yours?
Well, that's on the outside. On the inside, it says a monster enslaved.
How about that?
Up here.
Very cool. Yes, you're right. It's in small text. We should mention, Chris is reading this in the faithful Marvel Essentials trade paperback. I, for the first time ever in my life, am reading a bootleg comic book online. It's not something I endorse. It's not something I approve of. But it was the only way to get these short of spending a small fortune on back issues.
There you go.
So,
unless you had spent the entire time up here with me, I could have gotten the originals, which are in comic book boxes in my basement.
I don't know that Mary would appreciate me being gone that long. So, it's weird being here. We don't have Mary
making tea
in the background. Should we call her and wake her up?
You should. We should call her.
Tea?
You should call her and wake her up, and she can titter in the background.
Today is her birthday.
Today is her birthday.
Yeah,
we should do that. And also, Mary is the only person, I've seen the word tittering in print many times, but Mary is the only person I know who actually titters.
I'm not going to talk about her tittering on the air. All right,
well, that's a whole other thing. She's probably sleeping.
She probably is.
Your call has been...
Yep. All right. Well,
we'll try again later in the episode.
We'll
call her between each episode. That's fine.
Okay.
We'll answer.
So yeah, we open with Gabe Jones of S.H.I.E.L.D. Doing some recon on Godzilla himself in his little S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopter, and he says to Dum Dum over the radio, I've spotted him. In fact, I'm right on his tail. I don't know how it would be hard not to spot Godzilla.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult to avoid spotting him at this point. I also do think it's funny that you have Gabe Jones and his little one-man helicopter, that S.H.I.E.L.D. has these little individual, all of their mechanisms seem to be individual.
Right.
And it just think, like, I'm not getting anywhere close to Godzilla in this thing.
Yeah, but he's Gabe Jones. He's fought the Red Skull and Nazis and Hydra. And...
You know what they missed in this series?
Hydra?
No, there isn't an issue in which Godzilla fights a giant Red Skull.
I would pay money to see that.
Like Red Skull makes himself giant to fight Godzilla. They do shrink Godzilla down.
I always thought it was a missed opportunity, and we're going off on a tangent here, but that's okay. We often do that on this show. You remember It, the Living Colossus?
Of course, yeah.
I thought it was a missed opportunity that he didn't fight It or Fin Fang Foom.
No, yeah, that's right. Fin Fang Foom. Why did that not happen? It just seems like it had to have been thought of.
Right.
Right? I mean, you have the legendary dragon of Marvel lore and the legendary dragon of Toho.
Right.
Under the same roof. But in any case, Brian, I have to preface this by saying I actually liked these issues better than I liked the previous couple issues.
Yeah.
And it may be because of what we're getting to. But so, Gabe is, as usual, trying to convince Dum Dum not to force him to try to kill Godzilla.
Right.
And you have, Dum Dum saying, "You've already made it plenty clear how you feel about that stinking monster. Permission granted to hold your fire. A single chopper couldn't even tickle Godzilla anyway," which is just what I'm saying.
Right.
And you get within tail wagging length of him in that chopper. Anyway.
So yeah, Godzilla goes inside a cave because apparently on the west coast of America there are caves
Big
large
enough
for him to just
That's what I
slide
thought too. Like, I just saw that too. It's like there's a cave big enough for Godzilla to go inside and they haven't built a city in it already.
But yeah, he goes inside and he takes a nap, and I think he's earned a nap after these first 5 issues.
Yes, he has. He has. And that nap conveniently gives us the opportunity for Dum Dum and S.H.I.E.L.D. to debut their brand new Godzilla-specific helicarrier. In fact, S.H.I.E.L.D. builds a new helicarrier with the speed of the Chinese government building a hospital in Wuhan.
Yeah, any new threat to the Marvel Universe, there's a helicarrier for that.
Right, exactly. And this one, what did they call it again? I can't remember.
The Behemoth.
The Behemoth, which is appropriate for Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if we ever saw the Behemoth again after this series ended. That'll be something I'll look up.
Yeah, that's definitely a piece of Brian minutia that we'll have to come up.
Well, that's why the 8 people that are listening to this show tune in.
We got 5 more.
Oh yeah.
That's why you get the big bucks for recording Defenders Dialogue, because they tune in for the Brian minutia.
So yeah, Dum Dum and all the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are looking at the new helicarrier. Of course, he mentions that it's Tony Stark that whipped it up for them.
Right, of course. Because this is an era prior to there being anybody else in the Marvel Universe with the intelligence and tech of Tony Stark. But, I have to say that, again, I talked about this last week. What I love about this, we're about to debut Red Ronin.
Right.
And what I loved about this story is, as I mentioned last week, that it reminds me so much of, Destroy All Monsters and the Gamera films and all that stuff, in the sense of, it's the kid in the world of monsters.
Right.
And although the kid, Robert, is a little shit, he doesn't seem to have the charm of some of the kids in those movies that I mentioned.
Right.
It is still pretty cool. And it's also, I'm reading this, Brian, I got a feeling that, did Guillermo del Toro read this comic? So this basically is Pacific Rim before Pacific Rim.
Oh, absolutely it is.
Right.
Somebody asked on our YouTube channel, because we also have 8 listeners on YouTube. So we have a total of 16.
Are you sure it's not the same?
No, it's different people.
Okay.
Different people. Somebody asked, does Jet Jaguar appear in the comic? And I said, no.
But we'll go you one better.
Yeah, Marvel only had the rights to Godzilla.
Right.
But they have their version of Jet Jaguar, as you mentioned, which is debuting now. You mentioned Robert. I mentioned Tony Stark. Well, at Stark Industries Detroit, Robert and Dr. Takaguchi and Tamara are with S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Jimmy Woo, and they are looking over the designs for a giant Godzilla fighting robot.
Yes, and it's a giant Godzilla fighting robot samurai.
Yes, that's the important part.
That is the important part. With a shield and a laser sword and all of that stuff.
A Gatling laser device.
Right. And just as I feel like Del Toro may or may not have been influenced by this particular comic, I also can't help but feel that Doug Mensch was influenced in the creation of Red Ronin by the classic kaiju history films Daimajin.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Red Ronin is basically a robot Daimajin.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And for those of you who've never seen those films, I heartily recommend them.
Well, and keep in mind, at the time, Doug Mensch was also writing Shogun Warriors for Marvel, which was based on a Japanese toy line, which was inspired by those films.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, there had to be a connection there.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the gist of Red Ronin, folks, is he's got a some kind of control apparatus that as soon as a prime operator sits in the pilot seat and puts on the helmet, he kind of imprints with the robot.
Right.
And after that, no one else can satisfactorily pilot the robot.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jimmy Woo, classic Marvel character, been around since the days of the Howling Commandos. Kind of a dick in the 70s here with this little scene between him and Tamara.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that, or should we just gloss
over
it?
Well, no, I just think I think it's interesting because, Jimmy Woo is very confident in his charms. But I feel like it's interesting, too, because did you ever notice that the Howling Commandos characters in the era of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's kind of like the original series Star Trek cast? Nick Fury is
That's
Captain
true.
Kirk. Jimmy Woo is Sulu, right? You just look around and it's like, and you have this. So basically, Jimmy Woo finally is having his moment of the sun. He's flirting with Tamara. He thinks that he's charming as hell and that he must have won her over, and she is clearly reluctant, and he kisses her anyway.
Now I want to read all of Jimmy Woo's dialogue in George Takei's Sulu voice.
Oh my!
Hello.
Oh my!
Tamara, I'm sorry. I didn't know you.
But then he would be sword fighting too. That's the best Sulu is Sulu with a sword.
So Dum Dum is then Bones McCoy.
Has to be.
Personalities match.
Yeah.
All right. So Robert is.
I mean, it falls apart a little bit there because then Gabe Jones is Scotty.
No, he's Spock.
He's
Spock.
That makes sense.
Wise.
Yeah,
I don't know that they have a Scotty.
You realize we just Dum Dum is like Scotty and Bones mixed.
What about Quartermain? He wasn't a Howling Commando, but he was.
Quartermain's a fucking red shirt, man. Come on,
no.
he got killed so many times.
Yeah, but he always comes back.
All right, Quartermain is like what's his face from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Number one.
Yeah, so Robert's spying on the construction of Red Ronin.
That may be the nerdiest conversation we've ever had on this show.
I don't know.
All right, folks, put in your vote. What's the nerdiest conversation we've ever had on this show?
I mean, I should mention later today, you and I, if I can plug the horror show.
Sure, absolutely.
You and I and Joe Hill are going to sit down for a conversation. We're recording for this week's horror show. Between the three of us and our mutual love of comic books,
yes.
I suspect we can out-nerd even this conversation.
Okay. All right, we shall see. Ask Joe about Jaws, and you'll get that's one of his favorite topics.
All right,
so
that's what we'll do.
All right.
So we go back to Gabe. He's still spying on Godzilla, and then the S.H.I.E.L.D. behemoth helicarrier shows up over the cave.
Yeah. The behemoth shows up. Let's see, where are we here?
Well, they start firing missiles, not missiles, gas straight into the cave.
Yeah.
Godzilla awakens in a frenzy. Pain fills his eyes, throat, and lungs.
You know what? I'm gonna jump back a bit so that we mention that prior to this attack on Godzilla, we have a scene of a page and a half of Gabe Jones and Dum Dum Dugan arguing again about whether Godzilla is a villain or a hero or a helpless animal. Gabe definitely falls on the side of Godzilla being a helpless creature and doesn't want them to attack Godzilla.
Right.
And then, by the way, also, again, kudos to Trimpe on the art.
Oh, it's
like we forget
fantastic art.
in the galaxy of stars of Marvel artists of this era. Herb Trimpe is often forgotten and glossed over, I feel like. But the art in this is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. Anyway, continue.
Especially with the scale and everything. He does a great job.
Yeah, and these pages of like it's there are several 2-panel pages of Godzilla being gassed and collapsing and falling down, and it's great.
Yep. And as you said, the gas works. He's unconscious. The shield agents are clambering over his body.
That's probably the greatest panel too.
It is. And then we see what Tony Stark has designed the Behemoth to do. It opens up like an LPD, the kind of ship that I served on in the Navy, and they load Godzilla's unconscious form into the helicarrier.
Now, let's just mention this, though. Tony Stark is supposed to be the smartest guy in the Marvel Universe at this point.
One of them.
Well,
Him
maybe
and Reed
second to
Richards.
Reed, right? But Tony is focused where Reed is scattered, always, right? Does it seem like not the smartest thing you could ever do to put Godzilla on board a flying machine? I mean, they do get him back to the base successfully.
I would like to apply for my no prize, Chris.
Oh, okay.
At this era in Marvel history, Tony Stark has a little bit of a drinking problem.
That's true.
So yeah, it's not far-fetched that he would design this.
So Tony decided, yeah, it's totally fine. I think that's fine, Brian. That's all good.
So yeah, we transition.
Can I get you a beer? Beer? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Scotch? That's a line from the classic Michael Keaton film, Mr. Mom, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
We go back to Stark International. It's night. The security guards are the only ones left. Also, Robert's left. And he is rappelling down on top of the giant robot.
Yeah, which you gotta love. I mean, he's up on this catwalk. His presumed guardians, Tamara and Dr. Takaguchi, who's his grandfather, right? Like, the kid's been gone all friggin' day. It's the nighttime. Nobody has seen this kid. And yet they're in this giant Stark International factory, and nobody thinks like, I hope he's okay. But he's not. But he is okay, except he's decided to infiltrate Red Ronin.
Right. So the control cockpit, we find out, is located through the eye inside his head, and he gets inside, and he has plans. Meanwhile, half a continent away, Gabe is up. We have an existential crisis here where he's watching Godzilla, and he's disturbed by their treatment of Godzilla, and then Godzilla awakes.
Mm-hmm. Godzilla. Strangely, if you don't keep Godzilla sedated, he's gonna wake up.
Yeah. Again, right? Tony was into the scotch.
Yeah,
what he decided.
If you don't keep Godzilla sedated, he's gonna wake up. He's gonna be pissed. He's gonna break loose, and then he's gonna burn the fuck out of your base.
Right.
And then this stomping panel that ends the issue is so great. It's like Godzilla, and you could practically hear the boom. That I just love it.
Yep.
Love it. Anyway, we also should say as we segue into issue 7 that Robert got inside Red Ronin. He slipped on the Cerebro-looking control helmet and immediately passed out at the controls. Something happened when he put on that control helmet that caused him to go into not a coma, but he's passed out anyway.
Right. So we go to issue 7. Fantastic cover. Look out, Godzilla. Here comes Red Ronin.
Yeah. You gotta love it. I mean, this is the stuff.
Right.
Right.
We should mention where the Behemoth took Godzilla was a military installation just a little bit north of San Diego, and that is where we open as Godzilla escapes from his enormous escape-proof cage.
I love the way that's written too.
Yeah.
Half the time you really feel like Doug Munch is sort of like teasing us with like nudge nudge wink winking our knowledge of how silly some of this stuff really is.
Yep. And we open with my favorite part of the issue, a line of dialogue from Dum Dum. Keep in mind, him and Gabe are having this back and forth. And he says, "That does it, Jones. $1 zillion out of the defense budget shot down in one belch of fire."
Well, they can put that on Tony Stark's bill, probably.
They probably can.
And then, Dum Dum saying, "That's the last time I want to hear you say that thing ain't a monster." And Jones, rightly so, says, "What do you expect him to do after you knock him out and crane him into a cage, Dum Dum?"
Right.
Now,
here's the part where I really have to question what they were thinking. That military installation north of San Diego, it turns out at the south end of that base,
I had the same thought.
It's one of the largest nuclear missile installations in the United States.
Well, not only is it one of the largest nuclear missile installations in the country, but the nuclear missiles, and again, all I can hear is Chekhov going, "Where are the nuclear vessels?" The nuclear missiles are exposed. They're not underground. They're standing like NASA rockets ready to be launched at the end of the base. To my knowledge, this is not how the United States typically stores its nuclear armaments.
Well, not only that, but they apparently already have them primed for their targets. So if he damaged, if he breathes fire on one of the warheads, it's going to detonate. Bad enough.
Right.
If he breathes fire on the controls, the missiles are going to automatically launch and start World War III. Now,
this is clearly Tony Stark's missile base.
I empathize with Godzilla here. I am always reminded. I did a signing out in the Midwest where there was, in fact, a nuclear missile silo. And Tom Piccirilli was with me. It was when my Devil Slayer series came out from Marvel.
Right.
I'm signing at a comic book store out there. And Tom Piccirilli's kind of chilling in the back of the store, and he sees these three guys come in uniform, and they look very nervous. And there's a long line, and he's talking to them. He's like, "What's wrong? You guys look nervous." "Well, we really wanted to meet Brian Keene and get our stuff signed, but we couldn't get leave, so we're AWOL, and we need to get back to the base." And he's like, "Where do you work?" Well, it turned out they worked at Cheyenne, and their job, they were on duty to
guard the
missiles.
nuclear missiles.
Nobody was at the controls. And Pick comes up to me.
Could these guys cut the line, Brian, so they can get back to...
He's like, "Listen, you asshole." And I'm like, "What did I do now?" And Tom Piccirilli's like, "The nation's unguarded right now because you and your." So I feel.
Listen, I just want to say, and this is perhaps something that should be better quoted for the horror show.
Right.
So I hope that Tommy will take this clip and give it to you, and you can add it to the horror show later.
Okay.
But let's just say, for the record, that Brian Keene inspires people to make poor choices. I think that I think we can look at almost every story you've ever told about this guy came up to me and said, and we know that Brian Keene inspires people to make poor choices.
Yes, we do.
All right, there we go.
For the record. Life.
For the record.
But not as poor of a choice as Tony Stark and S.H.I.E.L.D. have made.
Correct. It is not a good choice. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to spend a ton of time through it. As amusing as that is, the important thing about this issue is that while they're trying to keep Godzilla from doing this, Jimmy Woo and Tamara finally realize that Rob is missing.
That's right.
And then they're distracted from their search for Rob by something else, Brian.
That's right. Red Ronin is activated.
And has gone amok.
That's right. And
I don't think I've ever used amok out loud before.
Oh, I use amok all the time. Anytime Mary gets up in the morning to make tea when we're trying to record, she's gone amok. But yeah, Red Ronin is moving, and inside the cockpit, young Robert is slumped over unconscious. And curiously enough, just like Godzilla and the nuclear warheads, at Stark International Detroit, there are large bulbs pressurized with volatile gas. And if Red Ronin ruptures one of them, it'll explode.
Oh my god! The thing is, I love these issues.
I do too.
I love them. I just think it's fantastic,
It's fucking
and especially this so Jimmy Woo has to hitch a ride on a on some kind of Stark International security plane that conveniently has an empty seat. It's got two cockpits, and one of them is empty, and it carries him to. Above Red Ronin, he's able to jump down. And here's the other flaw in Red Ronin's construction, Brian. And I was surprised you didn't mention it before. Is that the pilot of Red Ronin sits inside the cockpit, and Red Ronin is a giant armored robot,
right?
Impenetrable, impervious, except you can just climb right in through the open eyeball. The eye socket, which is open to the cockpit. So, for instance, if any enemy decided to attack and blast you with fire or lasers or whatever, the pilot is immediately burnt to a crisp. But it does allow Jimmy Woo to just swing right into the cockpit and take over.
It does, and his plan for taking over is, quote, start punching buttons, hitting switches, and hoping for a miracle.
Yeah. Which, frankly, seems to be about the level of science that we're dealing with.
But hey, a miracle happens. It works.
Yeah.
He stops Red Ronin right as he's about to rupture one of the canisters of volatile gas.
Yeah. And I love those panels. The foot descending inch by inch, and he manages to stop it.
Right. So the professor decides that, they should dispatch the robot to assist Dum Dum and Gabe at the nuclear missile silo.
Yeah. And Jimmy Woo is heroic. And Tamara, despite it, in typical fashion of the era, despite the fact that Jimmy Woo forced a kiss upon her earlier that she did not want, she's now very concerned about his well-being.
Right.
Jimmy is running off. He's going to pilot Red Ronin. I almost said Jet Jaguar. He's going to pilot Red Ronin to go and interfere with Godzilla before Godzilla can destroy the nuclear missiles and start World War III or destroy the world. Who knows? The behemoth shows up. Now, Brian, we have another interesting character.
Who's that? Howard's?
Hugh Howard's.
Yep.
Who looks strangely like Howard Hughes.
Yep. Yep. He's an Iron Man character. He works for Stark. But then he crosses over into Godzilla. He was in the last issue. We forgot to mention.
Right.
He's the guy who delivered the behemoth to S.H.I.E.L.D. And he's now piloting the behemoth as they confront Godzilla.
He's got the pipe and the fedora,
Yep.
and all of that stuff. It's great.
He looks very much like Tony Stark's father in the MCU, who was also based on Howard Hughes.
Yeah. Yeah, and was also named Howard.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You've got the giant nuclear monster who breathes fire, has a tail that could take you down. So the fire is a distant weapon.
Right.
So I can't think of the phrase. Range weapon.
Right.
The tail is basically a range weapon. But Hugh Howard's flies the helicarrier so close to Godzilla that with his tiny little Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, Godzilla can reach up and smash it.
Right.
What the fuck?
Well, Howard's, much like his boss Tony Stark, enjoys the 8 a.m. scotch.
I mean, literally all I could think was that. Like, he could take you down with his atomic breath, he could take you down with his tail, and you get this thing, you're supposed to be the expert pilot, you get close enough that Godzilla with his little tiny arms can reach up and smash you.
Right.
Anyway, but I do love the panel of Howard's and Dum Dum flying through the air on the bridge of the helicarrier.
Oh yeah,
it's
great.
Yeah,
it's great. So they then launch all of their missiles at the giant nuclear monster standing in the midst of the nuclear missile base. But the missiles have no effect, just like in the movies. They only made him mad.
Yep. There you go. So they decide they're going to land the helicarrier. I think no, I'm reading that wrong. So Jimmy Woo gets into Red Ronin,
right?
And even though earlier in the issue, they've explained to us that as soon as the first pilot gets in, the prime operator gets in, that Red Ronin will only really respond properly to that pilot.
Right.
They seem shocked that Jimmy Woo can't properly pilot Red Ronin. I was rereading it and I'm like, what? I mean,
So while they're discussing this, Rob sneaks back inside Red Ronin.
Yep.
Puts on the helmet, and this time he doesn't pass out. And he says, I will go to this American base in California, and I will stop Godzilla before the Americans kill him.
Yep.
And with that, Red Ronin soars into the sky.
Yep. And then we have the end with this fantastic 2-page spread of Godzilla and Red Ronin ready to fight, face to face with giant nuclear missiles between them.
That's right. That's right. This issue was also notable because on the Bullpen's Bulletins page, which often featured Stan's soapbox and then the line items written by our friend Scott Edelman, the month this issue came out, another giant dinosaur monster comic published by Marvel made its debut.
Was it Devil Dinosaur?
It was Devil Dinosaur by Jack Kirby. So,
and now if I thought that Tom Snigoski listened to this show, which I know he doesn't, Tom Snigoski would have just gotten a little tumescent hearing the phrase Devil Dinosaur spoken.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
He's been a guest host on this show, and he doesn't listen regularly?
I'm not sure he knows what a podcast is. That's only half a joke.
So the time he filled in for me, he thought it was just the two of you talking about comic books.
Probably.
He doesn't know that he was on the air.
Probably.
Oh my! All right, so we go into Godzilla 8, fantastic cover. Godzilla and Red Ronin fighting.
Yeah, it may be the best cover of the series, or one of them for sure.
It is. I don't know how much time we need to spend on this issue. The majority of it is just Red Ronin and Godzilla fighting.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot going on other than this fight and a focus on Robert in the cockpit of Red Ronin and what he's experiencing.
It is notable that he's trying very hard not to hurt Godzilla.
Right. He's trying to do what Henry Cavill's Superman didn't do, which is to, both lead his opponent away from something that could hurt people,
right,
and not kill him.
Yep.
It's sort of the opposite of Man of Steel. That, by the way, folks, that's called shade. I'm not sure you're. But yeah, so Robert doesn't want to kill Godzilla, but obviously needs to stop Godzilla from blowing up these nuclear missiles.
Right.
So he's trying to keep Godzilla alive, but also defeat him, which is not. That's a quite a tall order.
Right. It is. And Jimmy tells Dum Dum, "Hey, that little kid is inside the giant robot," and Dum Dum decides he's had enough. He's had enough of this nonsense. He orders all hands to battle stations. We're going to decoy the lizard so that they can save the kid. And, a red shirt points out, but Commander, the robot and the kid are doing better against Godzilla than we ever could. Dum Dum's not having it. So he orders the helicarrier down, and then
Robert thinks that they're trying to kill Godzilla, so it's Godzilla and Red Ronin versus the helicarrier.
That's right.
Dum Dum, again, must be joining Tony for the 8 a.m. scotch. His decision-making is in question.
It is.
Yeah.
So one of the things Red Ronin can do, it can fire steel cables from its boots.
Because, of course, you know what I find Red Ronin? Red Ronin is sort of like Damon Hellstrom's Nether Trident, in that it can pretty much do whatever you need it to do at that particular moment.
It has a Keurig. Somewhere inside that robot is a Keurig.
No question.
Need a cup of coffee.
No question. Actually, this is when they invented Keurig. They didn't know it could make coffee. Yeah.
So Rob encircles Godzilla with these steel cables and flies off with Godzilla in tow.
Yeah. And this panel here, of Red Ronin, of Godzilla trying to fight being dragged off into the sky by Red Ronin is one of the funniest panels. It reminds me of whatever the Godzilla movie is where Godzilla flies by breathing fire and with his tail untrimmed.
Yeah.
Which is the stupidest. I mean, it's so silly. But of course, as a kid, I was like, that's the greatest thing ever! So this panel, make sure you put that on the YouTube channel.
I will. Godzilla, he's having none of this. And, oh no, crisis. The cybernetic helmet is ripped loose from Rob's head. He's lost contact, so Red Ronin is now out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, Red Ronin is falling from the sky briefly.
As is Godzilla.
And then Rob manages to get the helmet on and recover just in time to then be wearing two boats like they're roller skates.
Which, again, you gotta wonder, did he read this as a kid and did it influence Pacific Rim?
Yeah.
Because this is the sequence right there when he comes, what do they call him in the movie?
They're not guy starts with a G. I can't remember.
The giant robots.
Yes, the giant robots.
When he comes striding across the highway with that battleship. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the splash page right here.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it's I love it. And actually, I mean, again, let's talk for a moment before we finish up with this issue. Let's talk about Pacific Rim. Did you react the same way? I was opening night. I was like, 5 rows from the front, and the movie opens with that scene.
Right. And
I was transported. I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I had the biggest grin on my face. I was like, this is it. This is the shit.
Mary has said, because we also went opening weekend, and she has told friends of ours, watching me watch that movie in the theater showed her what it must have been like to go to the movies with me as a kid.
Yeah.
When the scene we just mentioned, when he picks up the ship, and the oil tanker, I think it is, he uses it as a weapon. I literally, and I'm not a rude moviegoer. I'm quiet. I'm respectful of the people around me, but I couldn't help myself. I jumped up out of my seat, fist pumping in the air, and I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And then people are laughing at me, and I sit down all sheepish.
Yeah, I wanted more monster, but other than that, I was, because I like the monsters more than I like the robots.
Right.
But loved it.
So we go back to Godzilla and Red Ronin fighting in the bay in San Diego. We get to see all the different things that the Red Ronin armor can do. But then S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up again in the middle of the fight. In fact, Rob thinks, oh no, the Americans again. Which I have to think is what a lot of the world thinks in 2020.
That's for sure.
Dum Dum's getting ready to move in. And what happens, Chris?
Well, I'm still going back. I'm not on the same page with you because I'm on two things. First, that the shield on Red Ronin's armor, from which apparently the laser sword, is able to be thrown like a discus, and then comes back to him. So he smashes Godzilla in the face by hurling this thing at him, even though it has got to weigh thousands of pounds, tons, and then it comes back to him, and then his hand turns into a gun. Fine, that's all good. It's armor, but this panel of Red Ronin's face with Robert completely unprotected and unshielded in the cockpit, looking out from the eye of Red Ronin. I'm just looking at him like, so all Godzilla has to do is blast him with some fire, and Robert is a crispy fried thing.
Yep. But Godzilla doesn't fire. And neither does Dum Dum, because Gabe tells him, hey, let's just watch and see what happens. And inside Red Ronin, Robert points beyond the city of San Diego. He points towards the open countryside, inland. And he thinks to himself, I hope Godzilla understands. And what happens, Chris?
Well, Godzilla knows that Red Ronin did try to help him at one point. And so for some reason, Godzilla decides, you know what? You're a cool dude. I'm going to follow your suggestion. And Godzilla walks off, as usual, to the sound of the music. that usually accompanies him. He walks off into the desert alone again and sad. I feel like instead of the Godzilla music in this panel, they should play the theme from the Incredible Hulk TV series with Bill Bixby.
Yep.
You know. Anyway,
but I have to wonder: is young Robert, who's certainly not the legal age, has he also been nipping at the 8 a.m. scotch? Because what he's done is sent Godzilla east, and what is east? Of San Diego,
almost directly east, Brian, is a little city called Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's right, and that's where we'll be next week. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
I'm not sure Godzilla counts for that, but yes.
I don't know.
Before we end the show, you should try calling Mary again.
I should.
It may be anticlimactic if she doesn't answer, but we should at least wish her a happy birthday.
It was Chris's suggestion, folks, so here we go. I'm dialing it. It's
there we
ringing.
go. Here we go. I think she's. Oh my God! She avoided your call. She ditched you. It only rang twice.
Yeah, it's her birthday. She's allowed.
There you go.
Oh wait, this is her calling.
There you go.
Hello. Hey, before you say anything else, you're live on the air with me and Chris. Is that okay? Okay, we just wanted to say
happy birthday to you. I didn't know we were singing. I thought we were just going to yell happy birthday. Then you started singing.
Do you want us to keep singing?
No, nobody wants that.
I get the message, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mary, we are a little disappointed to not have you making tea in the background.
I'm sorry. I just made a tea. I can dip the tea bag into the phone. Hold on.
I'm not following up on that.
I'm not following up on that either.
And there she goes. Remember, I told you.
Tittering.
She's tittering. Mary, I said to Brian earlier on the show that you are the only person I've ever met who I think actually titters. I've only ever read the word, and then I met you, and I was like, oh, this is a person who titters. And then Brian said he wasn't going to talk about your titters on the show.
Oh, my.
Well, anyway, baby, happy birthday from Chris and myself and the 16 people who listen to Defenders
That's
Dialogue.
right. Happy birthday, Mary, and Excelsior.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you. I am becoming slowly a true believer.
All right.
To you guys.
Woohoo! All right, I love you, and I will talk to you later, true believer.
Oh, I love you too, and thank you guys.
All
I love
right.
you both.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Chris, I think that's it for this week.
That was successful.
Yeah, so you want to give the audience an Excelsior?
No, that was just for Mary. The audience
just
could
for
wait
Mary
till
this
next
week.
week for their next Excelsior.
All right, we'll see you next week, folks.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it. God damn it.
I'd be going down on myself?
Shit.
Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya.
and Junior.
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
Check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Mando Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast Icon hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizonged leggings? Wait. Are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store. Stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows.
Three guys with beards.
Jim Moore,
Jonathan Maybury, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast Icon.
Brian Keene of the Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilio of the Mando Method.
Mary Sangiovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urban sick of ink stains.
Bizong's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.